Hey everyone, I am Nathaniel Rufflejance, and this is Prime News. So on today's episode of Prime News, our first one of the week, although we technically had a bonus episode on Sunday, we have Yokai Watch in the news for Japan. In fact, Yokai Watch 4 is coming to Nintendo Switch exclusively in Japan. It was leaked by Ryo Kutoya 2089, who got early access to the brand new Famitsu magazine that comes out each week. This person has leaked several things in the past. We're not even going to call this a rumor at this point. There's been some speculation going around about this, and Yokai Watch is it used to be a fairly popular series. The third entry kind of sort of tanked in sales, so we'll have to see what happens here, but maybe Yokai Watch 4 will be what reinvigorates the market, especially with Switch blowing up. It might be a perfect pairing for the system in, Japan. Anyways, for why we could trust this guy, he has had early access to Famitsu magazine for many years, and everything he has leaked has always been 100% correct from those, so we have no reason to doubt it. Moving on, this actually might interest all of you. We actually have a potentially leaked release date. I'm saying potentially because this only applies to one area for sure. For Splatoon 2's Octo DLC, it is the first paid expansion ever for Splatoon in the entire series history. It includes 80 levels. That's right, 80 levels for a new single-player campaign, and then at some point, either through completing the campaign or getting to a certain part, you unlock the ability to use the Octo in regular Splatoon. Like we're talking about, not like regular Splatoon 2 matches. We're talking about things like the ranked modes and the turf wars and all that stuff. I believe even Salmon Run will be included. We don't know all of that for sure, but I'm assuming that they're just going to be just like the normal Squidlings. You'll just be able to use them, and they obviously must not be evil or anything. They must somehow be on your side. I don't know. The story is going to kind of explain all of that in the single-player mode. Now, the release date that we're talking about is July 13, 2018, and this was leaked, and we're calling it a leak because I don't think Nintendo intended this, by the official Splatoon 2 Facebook page in Germany. They put up a piece of art, probably unintentionally, showing the release date of July 13th, 2018. Now, we don't know that this is a worldwide release date. That's why we're just saying it's only specifically for a certain area. This definitely sounds like, Europe is going to see it on July 13th. We're hoping that this is a worldwide DLC release and that everyone gets it at once because, again, you play Splatoon 2 against people worldwide, so it would make sense to do a worldwide release. I'm really excited for this DLC. I still play a lot of Splatoon 2 to this day. It does tell me that I need to motivate myself to finish off the single player in Splatoon 2. I didn't feel as motivated to finish it off as I did in Splatoon 1, not because it's not good, but because Splatoon 1, I felt like I needed to play the single player to learn how to play. I know how to play, but I don't know the story. And I really like the story in Splatoon 1, with the post-apocalyptic world stuff and all these things. I actually should finish off the story in Splatoon 2 before I play this, so hopefully I get to that before July. Moving on, this is actually really neat for Mega Man fans out there. Mega Man X Legacy Collection 1 and 2 is coming to Nintendo Switch. We have a whole bunch of stuff that you're going to be watching a trailer throughout this. It includes Mega Man X, X2, X3, and X4 in the first collection pack, while the second collection includes X5, X6, X7, and X8. There is going to be a high-resolution filter option, which is glorious for me. I love when these retro collection packs do this. It makes it look so much better on the big screen TVs that we use today. There are improved visuals overall across all of the games to make them, obviously, again, look even crisper and even better on today's televisions. There is going to be a huge museum included in the games that have a gallery, which includes like official art pieces and stuff, a music player, the day of... I don't know exactly what this is. It's like a Sideways M. It's a prologue to the first X game. It's an animated short. There's going to be all the old trailers and a product gallery for all of the various merchandise they've released around the X series over the years. Just a very cool thing, for anyone interested in the history of the series to kind of dive deep into. They're also adding a new mode called the Challenge X, or the X Challenge mode, whichever way you would like to interpret it. The basic idea is that you could fight against two bosses at the same time instead of traditionally a Mega Man where you only fight one. And the game itself will be available on July 24th. So July is starting to look like it's backed up between the DLC, Mega Man, and other games that are likely to be coming that month. We have some other news to hit on today. First off is that the Switch, as it stands, is completely compromised, according to a well-known Switch hacker. Hacker Skyers M did an interview with GBA Temp and had the following to say about Nintendo's Switch. I think that software-wise, Nintendo has done a really great job. Their operating system, Horizon, is a new, updated version of the OS on the 3DS, with all of the hardening that has come from the 3DS's years of security issues. There have been a few unfortunate mistakes on their part, but by and large, the HOS is extremely secure. We've still not seen even one traditional exploitable vulnerability in the HOS kernel, which I think speaks well of the investment Nintendo has been making into securing their platform. I think that the Switch's biggest weakness, security-wise, is that it's running on and has to be designed around the Tegra X1 hardware. The Switch has been completely compromised. All current hardware can be compromised. They can mitigate the vulnerabilities in newer units, either through or via a hardware revision or updating the boot room patches written at the factory. So, essentially, all current hardware that's out there in the market, my Switch, your Switch, everyone's Switch that has one right now, is completely compromised and completely hackable and vulnerable to exploits. Primarily thanks to the hardware itself, not really due to the software. The software vulnerabilities, while some people have been able to get into the 3.0.01 version of the OS, reality is that that's a very specific version that would disclude a lot of different games. So a lot of people will not be interested in the hack. It's more the hardware level hacks. And Nintendo has already announced, for those who forgot, that they are going to be doing new SoC versions of the Switch, so there's going to be variations to the X1 chip. It might be completely replaced in the future, who knows? But what we need to also remember is that it's not surprising that the Tegra X1 on the Switch is as vulnerable as it is, because it is a stock Tegra X1 chip, and the stock X1 chip has actually been available on the market through NVIDIA Shield devices since 2015. So while the Switch only released last year, hackers have actually had almost full 4 years with the Tegra X1 chip to figure out its various exploits. So with the Switch using a stock version of it, it obviously was open to the same exploits that Tegra X1 had back in 2015. So with new system on a chip and new modifications coming around, basically they're confirming that while it's hardware level, Nintendo can actually mitigate and eliminate a lot of the current issues with the exploits. So that just obviously raises the bar and raises the challenge in the hacking community, which they're usually excited about. They love kind of figuring out how to get around Nintendo stuff. But again, this also is generally good news. It also confirms that the OS of Switch is in fact the 3DS. Like the basic background of this kernel that really builds out the whole OS is from the 3DS. Very interesting that Nintendo is continuing the use of that. Obviously, it has to do with how secure it is. Nintendo has done a very good job keeping it secure. So good news is, at the OS level, Nintendo has done a fantastic job, and now they're going to do some modifications to fix it at the hardware level. Switch is going to be a very difficult platform to hack moving forward as new SoCs and new units hit the market. By holiday this year, the hardware problems might be almost eliminated. So for those of you out there that don't like the hacking community and wish they would go away, well, Nintendo's about to make it 10 times harder for them. And the good news is that at the software level, they've already basically fixed all of the currently known vulnerabilities of the 3DS OS. Moving on, the next story is really interesting because ARMS is getting a 5.3 patch landing tomorrow, or they're not even calling it a patch, they're calling it an update. It was officially announced today, and we don't really know what this update includes outside of the fact that it says useful content in the notes. And it's interesting, a lot of people have been actually talking about this from what I've seen in the Nintendo community, because ARMS itself was said it's getting no more content patches, right? Like there weren't going to be new content. There would be updates and bug fixes, and they obviously recently did the test bunch. And yeah, like they were still going to maintain the game is essentially what they said, but we're getting useful content, which means probably new content, and we weren't supposed to be getting any more new content for ARMS. So surprise! ARM sales must have spiked or something after the test punch. I don't know, But Nintendo is continuing to show support for ARMS. And for those of you out there like, really? ARMS? Who's still playing that? Go ahead and boot up ARMS and see how long it takes to get into a match. It doesn't take very long. There is still a community playing that game, probably a bigger community playing ARMS than there is, say, even NBA 2K18, which I currently play. I have to wait several minutes usually to get a match, and I end up playing like the same round of 10 people, it seems, every day. Whereas ARMS, it takes like less than 10 seconds. So it's very similar to Splatoon 2 levels in terms of not the size of the community, but the activity of the community. So the ARMS community is very much there, and they are still seeing love and support from Nintendo. And the fact that we're almost more than a year out before the game, since that game came out, and it's still getting support and still getting content, that tells me that it's very highly likely we're going to get an ARMS 2 someday. Pure speculation on my part. I know the director of the game has actually talked about potentially making an ARMS 2 someday, but I feel like it's a foregone conclusion at this point. Maybe not released on Switch, but in a future hardware, but I think ARMS is here to stay. So awesome. Another successfully launched new IP from Nintendo in the past 2 generations. First Splatoon, now ARMS. They obviously had the failed game on there on 3DS, which it makes me sad. I love steampunk games so much. Codename Steam, come on. I love that game. But it is what it is. Not everyone has my taste. The next story we're going to actually talk about is about Disagia Refined. In fact, Nippon Ichi has confirmed that Disagia Refined is coming to Switch. Now, that is a remake of the very first Disagia game. It is landing on Switch on the 26th in Japan. It'll have a regular and special edition. There is currently no word on a localized version, but given that other Disagia games have already been localized and came over, and Disagia, the original game's already been localized and is available in English, I feel like it's a foregone conclusion we're going to see it. It'll probably just be later this year. So Japan will get it first, and then we'll get it later this year. This is actually really common among these more B-tier, third-party kind of games out of Japan. And the last story we're going to talk about is it's something we don't talk about very often because we don't get data for it that often, but Nintendo was actually the second most seen gaming industry brand from February 16th through March 15th on TV in the United States, or North America probably on the whole, for being honest. They had 499.3 million impressions generated from 11 commercials. That's right, they only ran 11 commercials, but they were seen almost 500 million times. Those commercials aired over 3,000 times total. They had over 80.8 million impressions for their Get Together with Great Games commercial, which is actually a really good commercial. The ads that they had appeared on Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, and the Disney Channel. The ads appeared alongside shows such as Teen Titans Go, SpongeBob SquarePants, and The Amazing World of Gumball. They only were behind Sony overall. Sony had 33.4% of all gaming-related ad impressions on TV, while Nintendo had 26.9%. So Nintendo, while they fell behind Sony, they are continuing their very strong marketing push. You really want to see Nintendo maintain in the top 2 or 3 companies in the United States in terms of their advertising budget, because that means that they are putting a ton of money and a ton of effort into spreading the word of Switch and spreading the word of their games. And the fact that they're number 2 might even have to do with the fact that they just don't have any major big games coming out. Like when Smash Bros. Comes out, Pokemon comes out, and all that stuff. Don't be surprised if Nintendo jumps to the number 1 spot because, well, now they have bigger titles. Now they're not just advertising a platform, they're advertising bigger games with it. Obviously, they're still advertising games from last year as well. But yeah, 11 commercials, 3,000 times aired, 500 million impressions. Just crazy, crazy numbers. It also proves that there is still obviously a big market of people watching traditional TV. And the funny thing is, my house is actually part of that. While we use DirecTV Now, our viewing of DirecTV Now does count towards these numbers. So if you're watching a streaming cable TV service, like say you use YouTube's cable service or Hulu's cable service or whatever the case may be, if you're using the live streaming TV, those numbers do count into this because they do get the traditional commercials most of the time. So yeah, good stuff here. Good stuff. Good on Nintendo. Glad to see them still pushing the Switch really, really hard. Well, right now it seems like they're targeting children. I would like to see them start to turn things a little bit. I love that they're on, those Cartoon Network and Disney Channel and Nickelodeon. I actually would like to see Nintendo start to advertise a bit more on like ESPN and maybe hit some older audiences, but like that's what Sony did. Like Sony, I think had like 600 billion impressions or something. And again, they're doing that because They're advertising not on just the kid networks, but also some of the more adult ones like ESPN that hits with a kind of a youngish, a young adult crowd. So we'll see what happens there. All right, folks, well, that's going to do it for today's Prime News. We had some nice hot fire stuff landing today. I also want to give a shout out to Eric Moore from the Nintendo Prime podcast. If this green screen turns out as well as I hope it did for you guys, and I'm going to turn it off now. As you can see, this green screen back here is actually a wall that connects to a point right here. And this is all custom painted now. There is no more traditional like cloth green screen back here. This is a painted on green screen. He bought all of the paint and all of the paint supplies. The table you're looking at now, you see this. There is no longer a tablecloth on here. This is a matte black finish, which should help with light reflections. Obviously, we're not perfect with the light. You're seeing some shadows where the light here and the light here are creating a shadow on me. That's because we really need the lights to kind of be behind me. Basically, I need to be further away from the green screen. But there's not. I'm in a small room. My office and my recording area is in the same place, so I can't get the lights back in. Like, even if I left the lights where they were and I moved forward, the camera, I'm limited by the camera because the camera's a webcam and I can't use a cable extender on it or it won't record. And where the camera is right now is about as far away from my computer as I can get. Once I get a DSLR camera, all the issues might be fixed because then the camera can be put back in that corner. I can move this table out a little bit, get further away from the green screen, which gets rid of these yucky shadows. And then it'll be absolutely perfect. Right now, look how well lit that green screen is. That is amazing to me. You guys have no idea what we've been dealing with the green screen, with it having holes in it and tears and this and that. We've been doing the best we can. But Eric Moore, to the rescue, out of nowhere, just showed up at my house and said, hey, look, we're going to make this better. And it became almost a 2-day full project between the both of us. So shout out to Eric. I hope you guys enjoy this episode of Prime News and that you enjoy that we're continuing to slowly, as best as we can, improve the quality of the show. All right, folks, I'm Nathaniel Rufflejans from Nintendo Prime, and if you like this video, you know what to do. And if you dislike it, hit that dislike button, subscribe for more content, and as always, folks, I'll catch you in the next one.